Oh, apparently we are live. Bumper music, if you will.
Four, three, two, one.
Lift off and the clock has started.
A good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good day to you, wherever you may be listening or watching around the globe, from Christchurch, New Zealand, to the Isle of Skye to Marietta, Georgia. Welcome to the All Around Show, the Metaphysical Variety Podcast, where we just get into stuff. I'm your host, Scott Schroeder, and I am grateful for a little bit of your valuable time. As you all know, a show's success depends on you. Please take a second to do all the like and subscribe and bell and review things, as that helps the show grow. Because if you find anything valuable here, or if you're even slightly entertained and you might want someone else to see it or share in it, if we get buried by the algorithm because of no interaction, then we get buried. But you know what? It is what it is. There's 10 billion things out there to watch, and I'm just here doing this little thing, speaking my mind. If you like it, like it. Does that make sense? If you don't. Awesome, right? All right, let's get into it, shall we? And by the way, before we get into it, shall we? My music. Yes, it may be unusual for a YouTube show or a podcast. Well, not so much a podcast, but a YouTube show to have bumper music. And if you are under, I don't know, let's say maybe 35-ish, you probably missed the golden age of radio and things like bumper music that let you know it was that time when a show was coming on. And that's also why I wanted to call it a show, because I'm just doing stuff here. I'm just talking, just me doing these Monologue Mondays and me coming in and having conversations with my friends about whatever may or may not interest me. It may or may not, whatever interests me may or may not interest you. Anyway. And by the way, this topic, the topic of this Monologue Monday, is about this thing right here. So it's going to draw a lot of ire, because people can't handle the truth about this particular little device. And also, you're going to see in the comments section, well, hey, man, isn't that ironic that you're doing a YouTube show that people are going to look at on their phones? This is not about the existence or use of this thing. It's about how it's used, and the complete and total psychological and physical addiction to this stupid little thing. And by the way, I encourage you to watch this like a TV show on your actual television. If you got to watch it on this thing, that's fine. But the reflex that when you have a nanosecond of disengagement or boredom, that the reflex is to do this. It's like, are we actually going, how long will it be before we evolve into an organism that does this? The elbow is automatically bent and flexes up to the field of view, so we just don't have to spend even the slightest tiniest sliver of time, maybe in an introspective fashion, or thinking, or considering our actions or our words or those of other people. Anyway, this Monologue Monday is going to take a slightly divergent path before we get back to that. And so I'll just get going. You know, for years, I've been trying, as one will, or maybe that's just me, to triangulate a root cause for the exponential deterioration of basic humanity, civility, and grace in Western culture. Why? I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy and I like clawing my way toward eternal madness. Anyway, at first, naturally, I thought it's just people being assholes, and you just want to snatch people by the scruff and say, what's your deal, man? Were you born an asshole? Were you born this way? Or have you been refining this particular skill of yours since puberty? Unbelievable. But that really isn't bearing out to be true, because I still encounter too many basically decent, basically nice people for that to be the case. Then I hypothesize, because I have time to hypothesize, that people were becoming catastrophically entitled and unaware from being siloed into a world that didn't extend past the phone at the end of their arm, that little like 2.5 foot distance of this enclosed bubble in which so many people bury themselves. Because what's going to happen there is the algorithm's going to get you, and you're going to get funneled, an ever decreasing funnel into a world where you're just siloed. And when one digitally pigeonholes oneself into a world that consists solely of luxury beliefs that are begat by elitism, fostered by hashtags, and whose lifespan is decided by Twitter, X, whatever trends, one tends to lose touch with the universe as it exists for the other 8-ish billion people hanging around here. And to be certain, each of these is true. Each of these aspects that I mentioned, the asshole factor and the siloed, walled off blinders factor fueled by weird elitist idea viruses is eroding the basic decency that's encoded, the social contract, the human interactions. It seems to be sort of intrinsic and encoded in our DNA, that moral compass that tells you that without anybody having to tell you the thing that you're doing, if it's right or wrong, you're going to know if it's right or wrong. But what is it that can call, what I'm seeing lately goes far beyond it's deeper than just people being assholes or people just being mindless phone zombies. It's like we're losing the ability to see other people, much less consider them at all. And what is it that can cause people to ignore intrinsic human qualities like the sympathetic response to the actual existence of another human? And my latest theory is that highly regulated and curtailed activity in the actual world, coupled with near total absence of external and self-regulation in the digital world. In other words, well, I probably shouldn't stare at my phone for 17 hours a day. These things, it's rendered people incapable of thinking and functioning outside a linear path. And you add to that the addiction to distraction and its algorithm series of ever diminishing concentric circles of thought, and you're cooking a pretty rancid stew. This fractured mode of being is a lunatic derivative of a basic Archimedean geometric principle. You see yourself as point A, and whatever gratification renders your prefrontal cortex useless as point B, and nothing, no things that cross the path of the straight line connecting A and B matter at all or really even exist. It's a deep-seated psychological disconnect that slowly shades every facet of perception. A great deal of the damage is hidden in the psyche and slowly revealed through a dark shift in thought processing and interpersonal relationships. Overtly, it's most recognizable in how people conduct themselves behind the wheel, because this is insanity. If you find yourself, if driving your vehicle, if piloting that 2-ton death missile gets in the way of you staring at TikTok, maybe you should surrender your driver's license. I don't know, take public transportation or carpool, have a friend drive you, because this is insane. The distraction. You're 400 times more likely to get into an accident through distracted driving based on phone consumption while you should be driving. It's incredible, but we just don't care. Death is too abstract for us. What about someone else's death? What about slaughtering someone else's family? What about smearing someone else's child on the highway? Is that too abstract for you two to put your fucking phone down for a second while you're driving? It's fucking ridiculous, man. But you see it behind the wheel. You also see it trying to walk down the sidewalk when there's 12 people walking abreast coming at you on the sidewalk, and you move as one would, as one should, to as far to the right as you can. And it's like they don't see you. And that's what I'm talking about here. This linear mode of thought. You see the same thing in store aisles. People just stop right in the middle and block the entire store aisle while they're staring at their phone. And it's not I've gone past thinking that they're just being assholes into the belief that they're not capable of recognizing that there are other people in the world. You see it at the gym, you see it at the workplace, and on the neighborhood, hiking trails, and on, all these different places. I don't need to list any more of these. Really, anywhere that requires a reciprocation of the implicit code of public etiquette and customs. That's where you see this. And why is this happening? Because time spent reading, writing, thinking, and doing and connecting with other people has been replaced with instant and ubiquitous distraction eternally lodged in the palm of your hand. Now, this has led to the crushing of empathy, general unawareness, and an inability to live up to the inherent and correlative nature of the social contract. Past generations spent time refining their interactions in the world they occupy to reduce pointless and destructive friction. Present generations hide their mind and spirit behind digital walls, and they can't figure out why they're miserable, or they refuse to figure out why they're miserable. It's pretty clear. And please don't misconstrue my use of the word generation as some sort of shot at younger people, because it's not. Because this festering illness isn't contained by age or any other demographic you can think of. It's borne by everyone who has surrendered anything resembling a meaningful existence to the little handheld glowing god of mental sawdust. It's so sad. That thing, that ubiquitous rectangle of enslavement that's now permanently affixed to everyone's hand, is having a kind of reverse Darwinian effect on human development. The new standard human condition is a folded and hunched posture, bow-necked, chin on chest, nearsighted, non-hearing unawareness of the world, and comprehensive systematic anxiety, depression, irrationality, and utter self-involved narcissistic nihilism, and everyone knows it. On a visceral level, everyone knows how catastrophic the phone addiction pandemic has been, and I use that word on purpose, particularly to developing minds who need nurturing and wise guidance. Instead, we've been shoving electronic devices into cribs and daycares for a decade and then lamenting the poison fruit while refusing to point at the tree from which it falls. Social media is the monster under the bed, right? It's all social media's to blame. People love to polarize themselves with arguments over the effects of social media. Social media, hold on to your hats, Gertrude. Social media isn't the problem. It's nothing more. Social media is nothing more than a mimetic expression of our lives. And social media has been around since cave paintings and hieroglyphs were a thing. Social media was the workplace water cooler. Social media was the neighborhood streets and playgrounds. There's nothing new under the sun. People are going to gossip and brag and pontificate and argue and share. It's what we do. The problem is the fancy little delivery device, this little thing right here, that has insidiously and comprehensively derailed the very essence of what it means to be human. The little handheld glowing god of mental sawdust to which you bow your head and pray for roughly 7 hours every day. And that's just over here. There are parts of the world, in the Western world, where it's 12, 13, 14 hours a day. And that's horrifying. That little thing is the heroin needle of postmodern existence. In 100 years, if we make it another 100 years, anthropologists and sociologists and philosophers and physicians will study this time in human history with utter astonishment at what we've done to ourselves and our children. The fact that we've willingly placed an open portal for all the world's evil to instantly and without obstruction travel like water through a fire hose into our children's bedrooms, well, that's an act of unconscionable abuse and neglect. It just is. that we allow it to stay in their hands and therefore their developing minds all day, every day, is a crime against humanity. We've sacrificed generations of intellectual, artistic, and spiritual capital on the altar of our own fear and apathy, and kneecapped the healthy intellectual, psychological, and physical development of more than a decade's worth of hopeful youth. And the result is a world full of non-functional people being led down a sparkly rainbow trail of dopamine addiction into a Dante-esque hell of nihilistic psychosis. Plenty will scoff at this, sure, but none can refute it, and they never even try. There isn't a rational, lucid human being on the planet who can screw on a straight face and honorably deny the hard data and anecdotal evidence of this catastrophe. The only thing they ever say is, well, that's just the way things are. Are you kidding me? Since 2012, the rates of childhood anxiety, depression, and suicide, not to mention obesity and its catastrophic effect, have blown off the charts, particularly among girls. And the best response we can come up with is, that's just the way things are. Please don't let me be the first source from which you've heard that you aren't obligated to accept the malfunctioning status quo. Are you willing to ignore this genocidal devastation simply because you're too scared to spend any amount of time with your own thoughts? You only exist because of the love and sacrifice of those who gave you life. What are you going to do with that responsibility? The future is up to you, unless you've already willingly traded the essence of who you are for your phone. By the way, next time you hand a child an electronic device, you should include a carton of cigarettes and a heroin needle. Those are probably less damaging to their long-term health. Woo! That's it for this time on the All Around Show. Hope you got something useful out of it. I welcome civil discourse at all times, so if you have something meaningful to add, leave it in the comments section. Thanks for your time, and as always, be mindful, be fit, be authentic. Whatever better than yesterday is for you, work on being that. Peace out, homies, and see you next time.